Welcome to Herp Talk Radio.
Welcome, I'm your host, Matthew, and my co-host I'm with, as always, is Peggy Detmers.
Yes, good evening, Matthew.
Good evening. Tonight we kind of have a little bit of a special show going on. We're doing live on YouTube and Facebook. We are live right now. This is going to be an open call episode, so if you want to hop on, feel free to do so. I will post the link in the brand new Facebook group, which was just created. And if you like the group, the link will be in there eventually once we get through our check-ins. So that leads me to Peggy. How are the turtles doing?
They're doing a lot better since I have separated the three meanies away from the smaller ones. And, it just leaves questions. They were getting the same diet, but different growth rates through these two clutches. The one clutch that was rescued from the road is growing even with the largest ones in the um, female that had the uh, shell rot. And within that shell rot clutch, all incubated in the same incubator, the same temperature. I have ones that are half the size of the largest ones who were becoming cannibalistic with just nipping and biting everywhere, taking off the very tips of some tails. And so I'm moving those three meanies out of there. Everyone seems to be quite more relaxed of the smaller ones. Feeding them the same as, don't want to get them obese, which I was getting, trying to stop the cannibalism. But so, that's going well. I'm anxious to send to Patrick, who was our guest a few weeks ago, the two from my captive red turtles, that he's going to grow out and help me prove out this clown gene. So I'm anxious to get those sent out, waiting for spring weather. So they're shipped overnight. Um, uh, I usually bring them to the FedEx, at about 4, and then he usually gets them by 10:30 the next morning. That's how these turtle shipments usually go. And this will be the second one I'm sending him. I sent one of the clown's brothers to him previously, and he is soon to be a father. The young female that he was mated to has laid already. Patrick brought the turtles in because they had that weird weather hit in Tennessee that's just totally unusual. Um, and so they're starting to develop eggs early. So this young female's laid 4 eggs. 2 have already shown to chalk, which is indicative of them being fertile. He thinks the other 2 are slanting that way. So hopefully Stubbs, the one that I sent to him, because he had a nipped tail from his siblings, has done his job in becoming a father. And we're excited that this clown gene may be expressed in his endeavors over in Tennessee. I don't have room for it, so I'm sending him all the babies that my clown's sibling that I've named Freyer. I'm breeding him with one captive born that I raised from the juvenile, knowing that he's the only male that she's been exposed to. So I may keep one baby that just shows up brighter green or brighter marginals. Who knows? That's all I'm making myself stay to.
Kind of the pick of the litter thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a pick in the litter. I'm looking at it right now. That is just she's brilliant. I incubated for females at about 87 to 89. The temperature got up to once, but then she's got really bright orange red marginals, and uh, she and her brother have the sibling males Freyer's really wild plastron marking, and then yet they got their mother's really bright, unusual orange red marginals markings on those rim around the upper shell, the marginal scutes. So I'm really happy about that. That the mother and father are throwing their best traits onto their siblings. So I'm excited about this. You know, being a part of proving out this clown gene. So then all the rest of my turtles are doing great. I'm about ready to cool them down. I was going to cool them down in March because normally we can start putting the turtles out in April. Doesn't look like it's probably not going to warm up in April till about the end of April. So
Yeah, it's been pretty crappy out there.
I'm going to do their cool down beginning in April. And the cool down means I turn off their tank heaters, and the water will get down to around 60 because we keep our cabin quite cool. And then the females will slow down. The males can now, and this male can catch them more easily. They're lazier. He feels safer in approaching the bigger female. And so, just to get them mated again and then ready to go out and lay. And probably I'm estimating late April, early May, and she's grown a bit since she's last laid last year. So instead of the 5 that she was having in each clutch, I'm hoping, that number will get up there around 6 to 7 this year. So what are you doing with all your snakes?
Well, just FYI for anyone who listens, this podcast is typically recorded with a 10-day window. Holy cow, that's loud. Yeah. So there's usually a 10-day window. We record, and then I have 10 days to edit the podcast and get it out. So we do have one episode in queue that will come out one of these Wednesdays here coming up. So the past 2 weeks for me, I planned a trip to Missouri. I went to Missouri. Everyone there said it was cold. I thought it was really nice.
What was the temperatures while you were there?
It was like I think we hit 55 most of the time, and the coldest day was 37, which was the high today here.
Downright cold over there.
Yeah, no snow. We had rain. It was nice though. It was like a nice warm rain instead of that cold, snowy rain. What do you call South Dakota rain? That's spring snow.
Yes, sleet.
Yeah,
miniature hail. that hits you in the face like needles when it's windy.
Oh. So we went down to see family. We were thinking about doing Texas. That didn't work out. So we went down, stayed with some family, just kind of checked out the area a little bit. I've never really been to Missouri or in the Ozarks because that's really where we was the Ozark area. Went to Springfield. Joplin was right there. We should have went there and checked out all the tornado damage that's still, I guess, down there.
Wow.
Yeah, toured the lake. I stopped at a really cool mom and pop reptile shop called, let me double check so I don't mess it up for the guy. It's like Frogs and Family Reptiles in Springfield, Missouri.
What was the most intriguing thing you saw there at their shop?
He had some Amazon tree boas, which I thought were fascinating. That's one that I want to get into. He had a couple of species of turtle. He had a ton of tadpoles for sale, frog-wise. So, which I thought about doing, but yeah, gargoyle geckos. I guess in Springfield you're not allowed to own a snake over 6 feet, and I not own a snake. It's own a species that gets over 6 feet, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. So he can't sell anything that can get over 6 feet long.
Oh wow!
So all his stuff was a little bit different than what there was no boa there.
So the tadpoles, what species of frog were they?
I am not 100% sure. I didn't ask. There were other customers in there. I kind of wanted to chat a little bit.
Mhm.
The too many questions, not enough time.
Mm.
Had kids, cranky ladies with me.
Oh, oh,
So, yeah, and then, yeah, I lost the bet here,
what,
Pegs. I
what?
lost the bet.
You got a turtle.
I got a turtle.
Oh, what type?
It is a soft shell turtle.
Oh, interesting.
So, it's a Florida animal
Oh,
that I bought in Missouri.
okay,
I know that much.
okay.
So, um, he's really small, like 2 inches long. So he had to have been hatched recently, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, I hope it's a boy. I'm just crossing my fingers that it's a boy.
Yeah, because then you don't have to deal with the egg situation.
Well, then I don't have to deal with a really big turtle.
Oh, okay. Well, and I can show you how you can raise them having a really good diet, but raise them on such that they don't grow to be monsters. Like some people push the growth of the animals that they want to breed to get them breeding fast. And if you grow them up slow, they can, especially the males, you can basically, keep them at a smaller size and make sure that you don't have to get huge tanks to them. You're still giving them the high quality diet, but instead of feeding them every day, you just feed them like on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
And then, they stay around, 4 to 5, well, for my painted turtles, around 3 to 4 inches for the males. And the females, though, you want to get them, even though I'm not interested in breeding and selling, I wanted to get them to a safe size that they could pass eggs quite easily. And so that's around, 6 to 8 inches. Um, I don't want them to get to be monster turtles.
Right. I don't want a monster turtle either, and beings that I'm pretty sure this species can get like 2.5, 3 feet on the large side. I don't need that in my life. Um,
Yeah.
I really don't. So,
Big. Wow.
well,
So
the
we're talking
picture for
for
well, the
Florida stuff.
picture it's from Florida. It was bred in Florida,
Oh,
so
so it could be a
it's a
spiny.
spiny. I'm betting it's a spiny.
Okay.
That's
And
where my money's at.
and they can get that
The
big.
the females get over 2 feet. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that because we have them here in South Dakota, and I've seen them in a certain creek here in South Dakota and photographed them when I was back in college, and quite interesting. And it's really interesting to watch them dig into the sand and hide themselves so quickly. But I had only seen them, none surpassing the size of dinner plates, and I wasn't doing a study in any way. It was just, you know, hiking along the creek, and but
I will. I wonder if a part of that has to do with like the environment that they're in. Like they're in the wild, so they're not eating every single day.
yeah,
Nothing in the wild is eating every day unless it's like a rat or a mouse or a mammal that needs to eat every minute of every day. You know. So
yeah,
I bet you a whole bunch of the turtle size does come down to diet and not just power feeding and trying to stuff them completely full.
yeah. Because well, and a lot of people that I talk to, really renowned people. Some of them still feel that it's the tank size that makes them grow fast. But I've seen red ear sliders get dinner plate in 2 years from people who keep them in a bucket to feed them every day. And then they just let them out for walks instead of putting them in a nice big stock tank or huge aquarium. And so those red ears have kind of shattered my belief that, a large they will grow to match the large container they're kept in, where those turtles seem to like they grow large because they're fed every day. So
Right.
and so I think because they are here in South Dakota, the soft shells I've met, their growing season in the creek that I had seen them in is only late April through mid to late September. And like you said, probably, and since they are mostly carnivorous, those soft shells, um, they're probably feeding as much as, if not slightly more than I feed, um, because I didn't see much in fish life. Crawdads, yes. Insects, yes. So yeah, it just depends on how much they move and they want to catch. But from what I gathered, the soft shells, did they tell you they're mostly ambush predators, right?
Yeah, scavenging and carnivores.
Oh, okay.
So, like, they'll eat a dead fish on the side of the creek if it's available to them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would surmise that that happens quite a bit since it is a town fishing creek, so to speak.
Yeah, I would bet that, I would bet that, like, the turtles in the wild are really only, especially around here, are only eaten 6 months out of the year. And maybe 3 times a week. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
that's what I'd probably bet. Of course, there's gonna be good weeks and bad weeks too, but
yeah, I know.
not
I know
every.
that the painted turtles. I don't know how. I haven't watched them again. Out in the wild feed, and nor have I tagged any particular one to watch them feed. But um, I know they do eat a lot of plant matter, and so with that, especially where I have seen them, they're munching on plant matter every day. From the algae and the other type of anacris and broadleaf type pond plants. So they're and hornworts. I mean, um, so that's what I try to do with my turtles. I give them free choice greens, but their protein meal only uh, for the males twice a week, and it works. I mean, I keep the two males I've had the longest of any turtles. They're in a 40-gallon, and those two are quite. They fit a 40-gallon really well because they're only 3 4 inches. So it's a way not to have your turtle outgrow your home.
Well, I know I'm gonna have to get a new home because the turtle is tiny and it's in a tiny enclosure because it's a tiny turtle.
Mhm.
Um,
What
but
type of
it
what
what
what type of sand are you keeping in
we're
there?
still working on that. We have him in a we're putting him in a 10 gallon. We're gonna try to do like the yeah, it's real hard to look at myself and do this. Um, like a 10 gallon aquarium with a bin that drops down into it. So it's like there's a shallow part, and
Okay.
then the rest is all aquarium.
Oh yes.
Do you know what I mean? So there's like a shelf of sand, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
do sand in that part, and then a little bit of rocks down on the bottom, but probably pretty barren just to be able to vacuum it
Yeah.
and
Okay.
suck out the turtle poop
Yeah.
and make it easy and quick to clean.
Well,
Because that's my issue with turtles, Peggy, is they're not easy and quick to clean.
well, and I have to confess, I have removed all the bottom substrate out of my turtle tanks, so it's just glass substrate with like six pretty rocks. So it almost looks like it actually looks like Spearfish Canyon Creek, where you get this really glassy, sandy bottom with a scattered stone here and there. And that sandy bottom is so full of mica, it looks like glass. And I'm like, wow, I can do that in my aquariums where, just have it glass. And then, like 5 or 6 ornamental stones with the plastic plant, here and there. And the turtles like moving those plastic plants, even though they're weighted on the bottom. They move them around, from one, ornamental stone to the other, where then the plastic plant hangs up on it. But it looks a lot like Spearfish Creek, because of all, the shiny mica, sand there. And and boy, is it easy to vacuum out those tanks. And then,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. When you have nothing to worry about.
right. And then the filters that I use, they're Flugel U4 underground in tank underwater filters, because I found I couldn't have the on back filters because the when our power outage goes out a lot from the trees falling on the wind every part of the year. All of a sudden, and I'm not home, then all of a sudden that motor would run dry because the water would be pumped out and then not it couldn't those on the backs couldn't find themselves. So in switching to these Google V4s and then putting them about an inch off the bottom, and then putting large sponge as their first part of the sponge filter encased in there, they suck up they draw the turtle poop across that glass so easy, suck it into the filter, and so you hardly see any turtle poop ever. And so in my 40-gallon, I have one U4, which covers, it's supposed to be for a 64-gallon tank. So it's actually, you know, doing about 2/3 of a 40-gallon. And then in my 75-gallon, I have two U4s. And boy, they keep the bottom tank of the tank really clean. And it's all I really have to do is, draw down water, replace water about every 2 weeks, just about, 5 gallons, and then, put in the fresh water. And then about every 6 weeks, I clean the filters if I feel that they're not putting out a strong output, just to unclog the sponges within that filter. And boy, I'm so glad that Spearfish Spearfish Creek inspired me to do this. It's like, wow, this is wonderful, rather than having to vacuum out, that gravel, which would catch so much turtle poop and just rot in there. And I mean, yeah, there was bacteria will gather in gravel for fish really well, but boy, for turtles, yeah, you just don't. Yeah, so I'm really happy with that. Oh, my turtles are doing a mating dance right now. I'm looking at them, and I haven't even cooled them down yet, and they're already antsy for spring. No, so yeah, well, I'm anxious to see your little boy. But I keep saying,
Yeah, I'll have to throw some photos up here soon.
Mhm.
Well, I am gonna go ahead and throw the link up in the new Facebook page, and I'm gonna try to get it on Instagram.
Okay.
If there is anybody watching right now, it's a family-friendly show. Please keep it family-friendly. We'd like to keep it that way.
Yes. We want all these kids to enjoy learning about reptiles and amphibians.
Right. Alright, the link is up on Facebook, and it's going up on Instagram eventually. I gotta find a picture. Maybe I'll just do it this way. Well, so we've talked about some turtle husbandry. Do you know what a snake rack is, Peggy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've seen those, and they're very, very intriguing. They seem highly functional and easy to maintain.
Okay, so the concept then is a stack of tubs inside of a sliding drawer system, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Would you agree that that's what a rack is?
yeah, very similar to an art supply rack.
Yeah. I mean, or any storage bin, or those 3-drawer Sterilite tubs you can get at the Walmart.
Right. Yeah.
Um, okay, so if you have a tub or 2 tubs, would that be considered a rack then? Because you're still providing the exact same kind of enclosure per animal. You just don't have as many animals. So is it still a rack setup if you don't have the rack? Question mark. And what
Um,
are your thoughts on that?
well, in the art field, in our art studio rooms, if we have just a rack of two, one has my drawing supplies, the other one has my paintbrushes. So I consider that a small rack. I mean, even though it's only a stack of two, so I would assume you guys in the snake world could label that the same.
yeah, I would. I don't know. I got into a little bit of trouble on Instagram
Oh, really?
because some lady posted that her setup of 4 tubs stacked nicely was not a rack,
Oh,
or tubs are not racks. A rack. So I really don't understand this, because then what's the difference here between, like, is it just the number of snakes then that's the problem? Because it's not the tub. And the tub is mostly what the rack is. It's the it's too small of an enclosure, right? Like
oh,
that's
oh.
what
Okay,
that's what people think.
I'm seeing this clearer. Now, I got the rack drawer tub because they're easier to access my supplies instead of having that tub just without the rack. So usually when you buy those art supply racks, they come with a black actual plastic frame rack and then tubs you can slide into it. So were you talking about just stacking the tubs on top of one another without the black stacked frame or what?
Okay. Well, I have tubs stacked on one another in the in my closet.
Okay.
But is that any difference? Oh, any different than something like this? Hang on.
Show us a picture of.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's just a matter of knowing.
How is my three? How how are my 3 stacks? My 3 totes stacked in a corner. Any if they're the exact same tote as there.
Okay.
How is it any different?
To me, it's not. The husbandry is the same. They're within the same substrate with the same shelter. And so you're basically saying stack tubs or stack tubs in a rack. I yeah,
Yeah,
to me,
no, I mean, yeah, you're either building a bilk shelf for them that
yeah,
keeps them nice, or you're just stacking them all by themselves. But it's the exact same for the snake,
yeah,
or the whatever you're keeping in there. If you're keeping a lizard in a rack, you're probably not doing it right. But
yeah.
you
I
know,
yeah, I just know that certain um, uh, they need their vitamin D at least certain part of the year so they can store that in their liver. So they need the UV, or unless you're feeding a special vitamin D supplement. But the one thing that we've talked about a lot on the turtle list is it wasn't just UVB we found that the turtles need. They need UVA, which creates a nitrous compound that opens up the blood vessels. Like you give heart patients the nitrous, compound to open up their heart vessels um, and that sunlight, the UVA actually does that too. And so I'm a big proponent on we don't know. Science can study what they know to study. Have they? And then we find out with science, like we haven't quite studied the exact um, complete chemical makeup of vitamin A. Or, we found out that vitamin A just isn't beta carotene. It's got these vitamin precursors or little fingers of other chemicals attached to it, which makes it the whole vitamin, which makes it more bioavailable. And so I'm arguing the same thing about UVA and UVB with people. We don't know all what the UVA and UVB naturally absorb through the skin, what compounds they all create rather than just giving them a synthesized vitamin. And and that's why I tell people try to mimic nature as much as possible. And so I don't when I see snakes stack like this and I'm like, when do they get their their UVA, UVB basking in tubs, or how do you do that? I'm completely ignorant. I admit it on that.
most snake keepers don't keep with UVB, and after okay, So it is. I listened to a live, I think, with Mike from Mike's Monitors, and he doesn't keep with UV, but they've kept monitors and have bred monitors for 20, 30, 40 years this way because they're supplying the vitamin D3 and calcium in a totally different way than the sunlight. So he was saying that if he were to buy into UV and upgrade everything into UV, that he would probably run into a whole bunch of issues because he's packing all his animals so full of vitamins that once they get the UV, then they would probably process that really badly and end up with way too much in their system way too quickly. So, yeah, there are ways of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, if he's done it that long, then he must still be getting good eggshell thickness.
Yeah, and it's working for him. So,
Yeah.
but that's that. The whole UV thing is so debatable, but it's not at the same time because like reptiles are made to be in the sun. You know, like their skin's completely different than ours. They're not going to get skin cancer by sitting out in the sun for 2 hours a day like we might because our skin's soft and
Yeah.
squishy, you know.
Well, and I noticed that when I switch from UVB and a heat lamp in the other socket to a UVB and UVA lamp, my turtles started shedding normally. They grew their keratin layers quicker, and they shed their keratin layers, their scutes, more normally. Before I did that, their scutes were building up. I still have the clown that just doesn't react, biochemically as well as the other turtles do, even compared to her own brother. I'm having to do extra hours of UVA to get her now starting to lift those scoots. And so I'm really anxious to get her out into full sunlight because I don't think this unnatural UVB bulb, it's one bulb in one, is given the amount of UVA and UVB of the natural sunlight.
Have you
So
looked into like VivTech?
VivTech. No.
VivTech products, yes. They have a bulb that's UVA, UVB, and all in one LED.
Okay.
They have multiple different ones for different strengths, if you will.
I'm going to put that in my notes right now. VivTech. See, I like this bulb. This one is Zoomid Power Sun. It provides the heat, the UVA, and the UVB. It was recommended to me by Mike Ikonovich, and I have loved it for what I've seen it do. For this clown, though, I'm like, she needs to get out into the sun. But so let me see here. Turtle Care into my notes. VivTech. And that is spelled VIVTEK or CA.
Um,
Oh, I can Google it. It will come up. VivTech
yeah.
Z-Bulb. Okay, I'll search that once we're.
VivTech products.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Cool.
I've heard really good things. Bill Bradley actually said that that's all he uses. Um, so in all his big monitor enclosures and that sort of thing, he uses those and then a heat panel. Because those provide the UV, and LED and heat don't go together at all.
Yeah, and this Power Sun does. And it's heat and both UVA and UVB, and it helped. My Southern Painted. I'm sure because she, her line evolved in the South, and she was not shedding properly until I got this bulb. And boy, she shed off 3 years of scoots, along with that new pellet that I have that has a lot of keratin protein in it. Um, and boy, she grew new scoots underneath and shed off 3 years of retained scoots, and has now a beautiful glossy black shell, along with her bright orange striping, because she's a high color southern Indian. And so I love networking with reptile people. That's why, I'm excited for people to join in and, um, as we have been with our guests, and hopefully someone will join us live here.
Yeah,
I
that
would
would be super cool. We have 0 watchers, which is great. It doesn't even matter. We would have recorded the podcast anyway with 0 listeners. So
do.
I'm
So
fine with that.
yeah, yeah,
So
maybe
the Power Sun then is only UVB. It doesn't have UVA in it.
yeah, it does.
It says on the Google search that it's just UVB. It's a
Um,
mercury vapor bulb, which can't
yeah,
provide UVA.
it does. If you go to ZoomEd and look that up, it says both UVA and UVB.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it there.
Yeah, yeah. They have.
How long is it supposed to last, though?
I only get them.
6 months?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That I buy the UV meter so I can tell when it's no longer doing its thing, and then I'm on what do you call that, auto ship every 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes if I realize that I Google it right before the auto ship is about to ship, and in case anybody else has them on sale, better than the auto ship price, and then I'll push out the auto ship and buy it from the person who has them on sale, and I'm talking $20 off each bulb. They're normally up there in the 59 or $64, but I can get them 35 to 39 by just googling them, and then hitting shopping, and then they do all the price comparisons. Like, here are 10 stores that are offering this bulb, and yeah, you go with the cheapest one. and so I'm paying 30 some dollars for each bulb rather than 62 or 64, which is just ridiculous.
I think if I remember hearing right, Vivtex bulbs do UV for like 5 years.
Whoa.
They're
Wow.
like $80. They don't do heat though. They're LED. They don't do
Yeah.
heat, so you have to find a different heat source.
Well, that's really
But
yeah.
but yeah. But they've like compared out because that's their biggest competitor is the Power Sun. And the Power Sun, if I remember correctly on Bill Bradley's episode, wow, where he talked with Erica of VivTech, I think it's 5 years, and I don't know where I was going with that. That's fine.
Well, I will look into them because and now are they the long almost
Nope.
square?
Nope, they're just a screw-in light bulb that goes in your heat bulb thing.
Excellent. Okay. What's the wattage? I guess I
They have 3 different bulbs for 3 completely different environments. So it's all based on what you need to do, and the owners are the people who work, if that makes sense. So if you email them with, hey, I've got turtle, this is my current setup, what would you recommend if I came into your product line? The owners will actually be responding and tell you. The people who developed the product will be there to tell you about it, not just some guy from ZoomEd who gets paid to go around and talk about the product, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I love sponsoring small business as much as I can compared to the big corporate owners, because you just get better service and more personal time to answer questions. What I usually find. I've got my new puppy whining over there, and we'll see. Probably just because the cat is teasing him. But anyway, yeah. So the one thing I was thinking of, Joe and I were talking snake, but I told him, I said, well, if I find that red line snake again, I'm going to pounce on it and see, because it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll keep it alive.
Yeah, it's supposed to be down in Colorado. That's the second, then that other king snake that we found that wasn't supposed to be here either, but that was out in Wind Cave National Park. That was the dead one that we photographed and put the exact location on that herpetology map. But this one, the red line snake, wow. I mean, I've never seen one before, and just gorgeous. And so I had to run in the house while it was still in my head and look it up. And I said, "Oh, not supposed to be here. No wonder I haven't seen one of those before." But yeah, I thought, well, if I do see it, if it's still out there in our rewilded yard, I'm gonna catch it, and from there, we'll see. Do we want to keep it or do we want to give it to you?
Well, you have to get a snake now that I have a turtle, so
Okay.
that's the way this is gonna work. I lost the bet. It's fine. We'll we'll move on from it.
Then, I told Bill the only place that we have to put a snake is if we take down one of the oil paintings that we have, because I collect original artwork from other artists.
Yeah.
And I'd have to take down one of those paintings and screw a habitat into our log walls above one of my turtle tanks. And that's the only place we could fit another animal in this house. We're not going to heat up another building and increase our
Well, at least if it's like a more northern species and it's surviving here, it probably doesn't need too much heat in the summertime or the winter time. You can probably get away with just not much.
Not much. Well, the thing about this snake, it is so gorgeous. I want to see it, and I want it in one of those glass, the front glass sliding door thingies, and with all this beautiful habitat.
Yeah, I have a snake like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you enjoy looking at it, and
right.
And yeah, and then it's fun when they, because I mean I've caught little snakes and then I put them in a little tank and then I watch them and then they get to the point where they're watching you. And then the one snake, garter snake that I had, he'd knock on the window like, "All right, hello, I'm hungry over here. Drop me a little mouse." It's like, okay. So, yeah, he's the one that ended up in my mom's bathtub and I had to let it go. Yeah, no more snakes.
Oh.
So.
I mean, here in another. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't even say things like this, but. After talking with Alan, after talking with like Alan and going to that pets, Alan, our only Alan that we've had on, that would, yeah.
Just letting our guests know who we were talking about.
Yes, anyone who's listening, it's Alan Bosch. After chatting with him twice now, and then going to that pet store in Missouri, a part of me is like, dude, maybe you should just buy some wholesale animals and start getting the name going. You know what I mean? Build up your colony.
Okay.
And your breeding stock and then go from there. So like be selling something all the time, even if I didn't make it.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that line is of, well, now you're just a flipper, because that's not, like, even if I did that, I'd probably keep the animals for a month, like, at least a snake, at least a month, before I turn around and sell it, just to make sure everything's okay, run it through some mite treatment, make, treat it well, make sure it's okay to go out the door, and someone's gonna have success with it, and send it out the door,
Yeah. I'm just so, how do you say it? I can't release an animal very easy. I mean, I get attached, even though, like, how can you get attached to a turtle? But when I walk into the room and they're hello, and begging for me, and Joel walks in, it's like, oh, we know you don't give us any food. I mean, so it's not like they're attached to me; they're just conditioned
You're the food monkey.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you are, the food monkey.
But yet, if I wanted to decrease my turtle numbers, it would be hard for me to trust that I would find an owner who wouldn't accidentally kill it, or neglect it, or I have those worries. And I said, so I could never be a pet breeder and an animal seller because I just I've seen so many animals be so neglected that I am just so resistant to breed itself. And I guess here in South Dakota, what concerns me, and we will be having, one of our guests. She's a reptile amphibian researcher.
We need to talk about that a little bit, because I have reached out and I have not gotten anything back at all. Not even like a, hey, yeah, I got your email.
Oh, well,
And it's been like 2 weeks now, so it might have hit. It might have hit her spam. I thought about calling her. I'm pretty sure her phone number is a cell phone that you gave me.
Okay.
So I have thought about just calling and being like, "Yo, I sent you an email."
I'll call her again, and they're trying to um, clarify is the word that they've been using, our turtle laws, more clearly defined. Um, and because it says you can't buy and sell turtles in South Dakota, but yet they have licensed Petco and PetSmart to do exactly that. And so even though, and like I said, well, you've licensed the sellers, have you licensed the buyers? Because the fisheries guys
and no one's technically allowed to breed turtles for commercial purposes.
Yeah.
So if you're breeding turtles to sell to the pet market, you're technically in violation of the law.
Right. And
but there's no species that are limited except for in the catching side.
Right. And they and some of the ones said, well, you can catch and eat, but you can't catch and keep as pets because you're not supposed to keep wildlife as pets. And so I'm like, wow, we really need to define this more because, the turtle that they're selling at Petco or PetSmart is wildlife in other states, so and so this is what they want to do. One thing we have good in South Dakota is they really don't want to step on business toes, but they also want business to be, following the laws, paying for their business license, paying the state sales tax, whether we ship out of state or not, that sort of thing. So that is why I'm anxious for the laws to become clarified. Because I know they go for small business, and there's a lot of people who, especially, when I was having migraine after migraine and couldn't keep a job, I had 3 bosses tell me we can't rely on you because all of a sudden for 3 days, you can't be here, and then what happens? And it's like, what, luckily I was an artist and able to make money,
right.
doing artwork, and so they became a stay-at-home business.
And see, now that I know those turtle laws are in place, like, I wouldn't mind picking up 10 turtles from some breeder and trying to sell them in the state, but I know that what the Fish It Handbook says, and I think it is very explicit in saying selling any turtle in South Dakota is illegal.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's captive bred or wild caught or whatever. It's illegal to buy or sell a turtle in South Dakota. I have yet to buy a turtle in South Dakota. I bought a turtle in Missouri, and it was a Florida turtle. So guess what?
Yeah.
Can't touch me.
Never bought a turtle in South Dakota, even from a pet store that is licensed to sell a turtle.
Right.
So, I bought. Well, number one, I only wanted painted turtles because I just love them. I grew up with them. When I was a kid, I caught painted turtles and kept them pets, but I didn't want, when I wanted to get back into them, being a stay-at-home artist, I didn't want wild turtles because I didn't want the worms and the parasites that came with them, and so I wanted a good captive bred turtle, and with that, I found the turtle source in Florida. And so I wasn't buying,
Yeah, you technically didn't buy it in South Dakota. You technically bought it in Florida, and they shipped it to you.
Yeah. So but I want, because I worked for Game Fish and Parks, I certainly don't want to break our.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin a relationship, especially when you have your permit and all of that stuff, you know.
Right, yeah, because I buy a fishing license every year, and then now that I'm rescuing turtles, and I'm going to be in possession of more than the 4 that you are allotted of each species. They granted me the scientific collection permit. I didn't want to become a licensed rescue and have all these people shipping me animals I don't have room for because they found them this injured or that. I'll just, some of my friends contact me, hey, we found this squash turtle on the road. There's these viable eggs. You want to hatch them? And so then, or there's a slightly injured turtle that I can take to the vet and rehabilitate it, and then release it. But anytime I release it, I didn't want to be releasing these turtles because I wanted to make sure the Game Fish and Parks is going to be happy that it's been under the care of a licensed veterinarian who's checking it for disease, that it goes back to where it should go. And so I contacted them and said, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do? And so they analyzed. I go, I don't want to turn this into a business. I don't want to turn it into a 501c3. It's just a 1 year I won't have any rescues. 1 year, like this last year, 2 egg rescues and a shell rot rescue. One turtle that had to be euthanized because his major organs had been crushed by getting hit by a car. Another box turtle rescue. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And all of a sudden I felt overcome. So
That can happen.
and so,
That can happen.
But I'm going to once the season is such, I want to acclimate these baby turtles to the outside and outdoor tub before they're released out into the wild. Make sure they're eating right. They're used, they're acclimated to nighttime temperatures and such. So that will help me relieve me of one aquarium full. Patrick's getting the smaller, aquarium with the 2 turtles on my captive red.
I was so close to him. He was so mad. It was real funny because I texted him. I was like, yo, I'm kind of in your part of the country, right?
Oh.
And I texted him on Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I messaged him. I'm like, I'm in your part of the country. I'm like, where exactly do you live? Let me figure it out. Let me see if we can do this. And we were like 400 miles away, 8 hours. I'm like, yeah, probably not this trip. And then I'm like, I would love to get into turtles, but I really don't want to do aquatics. Yeah. I'm really not into the aquatic side of this. And then 2 days later, I buy a turtle, and I send him a picture. And his exact words were, dude, you could have came here and got one for free. And then you only made it 2 days. You only made it 2 days. Yes, you are 100% right. I made it 2 days. That's it. Well, and I wouldn't have bought one if they didn't have the soft shells. I've always really liked the soft shell turtles. I think they look cool with their super long necks. I don't know. I think it might be similar to like why people like snapping turtles, because they have really long necks, and they're maybe not always aggressive, but they'll bite anything and eat anything they can fit in their mouth.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I found every time I see a pond of turtles and I see the soft shells, those are the ones that I've always liked. So, not the hard shell ones. So.
Well, I find them intriguing. They're fun to watch. I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this guy. I'm not familiar with them. And I sat down on the creek, and this is a beautiful, beautiful, clear creek here in the Black Hills. So you can just see them like you're looking in an aquarium. And so they're fun to watch. And, but, I've heard they're even more nasty than snapping turtles. And so
I bet the wild ones are, but this one I'm pulling out every day, and it's still scared of me, because it's food. Yeah. It's not a predator yet. Yeah. But I feel like as long as it doesn't think I'm going to eat it, and I can make it know I'm not going to eat it or not going to hurt it, maybe it'll be somewhat handleable. they're not really supposed to be handled. They're soft shelled. You know, like any aquatic turtle really isn't made to be on land.
Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah. Well, just I heard that they can really, with their long net, whip it around and get your, even though you've got them by, your, there's specific way you're supposed to hold them from the back of their, near the back of their buttocks, but they can really come around and nab you with that.
yeah, they got a super long neck.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no. They're fun to watch, and I like the YouTube videos where you get to watch them being fed. They're intriguing. I can see people being intrigued by them and having fun doing them.
Unfortunately, the way it worked is I've never really owned a turtle before, and then you go and Google softshell turtle care, and everything under it is like, this is not a species for beginners. This is a species that requires a little bit extra. You know, this is a more advanced species because of the soft shell. They're not as durable. Like, if that's really why it's more difficult, is because it doesn't have a hard shell that can get bitten by an alligator and be fine, then we'll be okay.
Well,
Like,
could they, because they spend so much time in water, they don't get out and bask much. Although I've seen them basking in the wild.
yeah, no, the picture I used for this here video was of one,
Right.
which is, and that you can't tell me that thing wasn't big. That thing was huge. That thing was almost 2 foot.
No, that one was only about dinner plate size.
Really?
Yeah, that was a small juvenile painted turtle.
Okay, that other turtle then had to be super tiny.
Yeah, the other turtle was only about 2.5, 3 inches.
Okay.
A juvenile painted turtle, and so, um, yeah. So we took that picture at the um, uh, Game Fish and Parks Rapid City Outdoor Campus, and it's in that they've got 3 ponds in that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and in their major pond connected with their visitor center, I saw a yellow-bellied turtle, which is an invasive species, in the game fish and parks.
Yeah,
So
you've
yeah,
said that.
yeah. I keep forgetting. I've got to send them a picture of that, and then the other pictures I've seen of invasive species here. Um, the red ears that I've seen. So yeah, that's one thing. I've already got a number of ladies that are interested in going out there and doing some plein air oil painting with me as we set up turtle traps.
Yeah, Jared, one of the guys that's in the well, he's now in the Herp Talk Radio Facebook group. Um, he was one of the people who, well, he likes everything, and I thought he'd be here tonight.
Yeah, Jerry, get on board. Come on.
Yeah, get on board. Hop on the stream. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, he hears us picking on each other, so
No one wants to join. It's fine.
But yeah,
Let's talk the turtles.
The one question is, and I would have to get a book on softshell to find out. To me, because they don't. What I was getting at, because they don't bask maybe as many hours per day, they could be subject to infections, especially fungus. And is there something you have to put in the water? I mean, that's what immediately is going through my head. Like, what could be the issue?
Yeah, I need to do some more research. Unfortunately, I did what every terrible hurt person does and saw the pet that they've always wanted that they haven't ever researched how to keep. Because they were never going to get it, because they weren't into aquatics.
Well, that's those type of people.
2 days. 2 days.
Well, this will be a learning thing for both of us, because I'm curious. Even though I'm never gonna want to keep them, I want to learn about keeping them, just because curiosity.
Yeah.
I
That's
every tank that I've seen on YouTube, they don't have a basking.
This is let me.
You're gonna show him? Or?
Is it a 3-yard crash? Oh no.
Yeah,
Overloading the Wi-Fi. Let's go, Matthew.
yeah, you're kind of getting studded there.
Oh man, I shouldn't have touched it. I touched it.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'll quit. I'll quit. I'll quit what I'm doing.
Okay.
That didn't work well, did it?
Yeah, well, yeah, you froze right
Sorry to
there.
anyone.
Uh,
Well, yeah, no, I tried to share the screen.
with your
Let's see if
turtle.
I can do it again. With the big turtle, like how big they get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to, we'll try one more time. I feel like someone was looking and then we cut out and now they're gone because they were like, oh man, they cut out.
Oh, well, Turtles from
Anyway,
South Dakota. They have a booklet, Turtles of South Dakota, and they have this finding in there. And I have to admit, I just didn't read that part. And maybe they do talk about how big they have been noticed to get here in South Dakota. Um, oh my,
that's in Montana.
Montana! Oh
That's in
my gosh!
Montana. So,
Oh,
how old is
how
that turtle though? How old is it? I'm sure
yeah,
in
no, I have
captivity with the right conditions, if you fed that thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
maybe in 20 years you'd have a turtle that big.
Wow.
But, like, I don't. Yeah. And I see these pictures like this, you know? I'm like, how can I fit that? I'm not
But
gonna be able to. If
look how
if it gets that big,
yeah.
I won't be able to do anything.
Yeah, look how small he is behind that turtle. So it might be, that it's a matter of perspective that the turtle looks much bigger than he, in comparison to him. But yeah, yeah. See, I have no
I
interest in
I
housing an
don't know.
animal that.
Everybody's super small compared to these turtles.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say, I brought up one of my best friends I grew up with. She wanted to have a baby snapper, and and there's areas that we rode to and our bikes along the creeks we'd walk, and sure enough, there was a brand new, newly hatched um, common snapper, and so she took it home and put it in a 10 gallon and fed it sparingly, and at 6 years, um, what did she say? She had him 5 or 6 years. He was only about 4 inches big. And so I mean she there was just and he was healthy and bright eyed and didn't snap at her because she taught him like, yeah, go ahead and bite my finger. You're not going to get anything, when he was tiny. And so he learned that, he only he only gets fed by the tongs. And I go, wow, he is a pretty decent pet, you know. But now she's talking about wanting box turtles, and so I pointed her to who I know sells healthy box turtles. And all right, I have a couple I could give her. No, but no, these two that I have belong to the Game Fish and Parks Possible um, Insurance Colony. Although with the young girl, she doesn't move around much more. She's just doesn't have much of a quality of life. If it doesn't improve, this growing season, my vet and I decided that the quality of life is, she moves 5 inches in one day. I have to put her in and out of water. I have to hand feed her. So, yeah, I have to think about doing that. But we'll see if it's natural sun and being outdoors, because she did move more when she was outdoors. And maybe she's just depressed. So there is that part of trying to rehabilitate the injury that I have to think of. But, yeah, we'll see. But I was talking to Game Fish and Park that I don't want to um, have them hibernate roommate in the soil because of our ant problem that will eat them as they are buried, and we have these really aggressive ants. And so I'll be refrigerating them, roommating them, rather than until the weather's nice, if we do have insurance on. So all kinds of things, these turtles are. And with this new dog that I have that looks like a chocolate coyote, this Australian Kelpie, it makes certain poses. It looks just like a wolf, and it's like, oh man, I've got to draw him. Put him in that position, and only make him look more like a wolf. And my accountant goes, well, now he's a write-off for you.
Right.
Good. Oh my gosh! Whenever we were walking this weekend, and people saw him, and we were walking to where, looking over where we're going to put the turtles and where we're going to, we talked about habitat improvement. I was talking with the game fish parks biologist. So we were walking that area. People come up like, what kind of dog is that? And I go, oh, we call him our chocolate coyote. But it's like, they go, uh-huh. I mean, they believe us because he looks so much like that. And like, no, he's an Australian Kelpie. And we find out they have dingo in them, and that's probably where that wild look comes from. But,
my dog looks like a dingo too.
Yeah, he's an what is he now? An Australian Shepherd or Healer?
I don't know. We don't know what he is at all.
Well, the Australians would call that a Koolie, Koolie, a cross of those cattle herding breeds, just to breed the best performing dogs out of the Border Collie, the Australian Shepherd, the Australian Healer, and the Kelpie. They call those Koolies. It's like its parents proved themselves in being some of the best stock dogs out there, and we wanted to breed that mentality into their pups. And so maybe you have a Koolie.
Maybe. I have no clue. I have no cluey.
Well, he acts like it from the last episode. He was jumping on your bed. I'm like, oh my god, he acts just like our Kelpie. So yeah,
he is a crazy, crazy dog.
Yeah. So maybe we can. We're going to teach this guy. He's such a scent dog. I mean, boy, he sticks his nose in the air, and then we see the elk or the mule deer far off. And so we're going to teach him to search and find and seek things, not maybe having a search and rescue dog. I've never seen a dog that is, he's going along and then we follow his nose, and then wow, there's elk up on that ridge. And so it's like, okay, we're going to use this. But yeah, it's fun. And so now we're talking dog instead of reptile. I'm sorry.
Well, typically this devolves into, I've talked about breeding cows. I've compared reptile breeding to breeding cows. You use horses a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, there was like a 6-episode stint where you and then like I noticed it, and then every week after that, the guest would bring it up. They'd bring up horses. So, and then you guys would talk about horses. So.
Well, there's so much more known. We were talking about genetics in turtles, and there's so much more known about, breeding loci of color patterns that horses. So yeah, it kind of devolved that. But, yeah. But with this dog, there's one thing in talking with the reptile biologist that's just moved here to the Black Hills. She says that we're going to be using this famous dog team to locate the box turtles, the ornate box turtles here. And I've seen these dogs used over in Africa. I mean, it's the same guy with his same dogs that he trains, and then we're going to call him out here to find the census the box turtles here in South Dakota. It's like, okay, put me on the list. I will carry your water, your lunch, your whatever. Take down the notes. I'm on the volunteer list to watch this dog. And then I thought, well, gee, I can teach our dog to do that. So I've been teaching him to find, the blind box turtle I have just loves to explore the house. And I think he can see light and dark because he doesn't get himself, bumping into things too often. But he, so I put him on the floor. At first, the Kelpie, Owen thought it was the most giant spider he's ever seen, and was so freaked out. He came running and probably jumped on me like, "Keep it away!" I'm like, okay, I gotta show him that he's not gonna eat him. So then, once he realized that the turtle wasn't going to hurt him. And then he was really interested in watching him crawl and everything. So then I put him out in a different room, and then I was like, okay, find a turtle. And he's like, it's like, did I even teach him what the turtle was? Well, I was going, turtle, turtle. And so he came in there and went under it, and zoom, just found him underneath where I keep my shoes. And he's like, I go, okay, we're gonna have a turtle dog here. In case one of my turtles gets out, he can help me find the turtle.
Yeah, a turtle dog would be a good idea.
A turtle.
You could go out in the wild and find turtles that way.
Yeah.
That would be very handy.
I'm laughing and talking about it now, both of them. Yeah, you're gonna be my turtle herder. You want to come up here and show him what a chocolate coyote looks like? Oh, now he's more interested in his puppy mate. Oh well. Like, oh.
So,
Okay.
What are some good topics to talk about? We could recap some of our shows. We have been doing this now. We are technically a quarter of the way.
Oh, really?
Through the year and through these podcasts.
Wow.
So, this would be the quarter episode, somewhere between this one and the next one. 12 and a half. So, yeah. So, let me pull up all our episodes so I can recount them in order correctly.
I don't know. You tell us, name the name, and we'll do the talk.
Yeah. Let me get that pulled up. I don't know if I want to continue doing the recap in the episodes and looking back on them. I don't know if this is a format that I enjoy doing, so we're gonna try it. We're all new. We're trying the live thing. It's clearly not working. Tried the call-in show. Hopefully someone comes. It'll be okay if no one comes. I'm having a great time talking to Peggy.
Hey Patrick, if you're listening, I've got questions for you on,
yeah, there's numerous people that, one, have been on the show, or two, could be on the show that follow.
Yeah,
could hop on that I would be very, very, very questioning on, because I have a lot of questions for a lot of people.
Yeah, you listen again, it's like, okay, yeah, how do I listen? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Alright, let's start with our first episode, Meet the Hosts.
Oh, well, we've already done that.
Yeah.
The second episode.
It was alright. Twyla. Let's talk about Twyla a little bit. Twyla's a local breeder here in the Black Hills. She sells corn snakes. Her Facebook, she is not on Instagram. Her Facebook page is KO Corns. And she has some poppin' corn snakes. Absolutely fabulous. I have 2 of them here. Oh, I picked up my scaleless corn snake. I forgot to even mention that in the beginning. Yeah, so this weekend has been full of getting animals, and we're still not making money yet.
Oh, well. Yeah, I love seeing her corn snakes on Facebook, but oh my gosh, they're indulged. They're beautiful, and I don't know.
They are gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they're corn snakes, so they stay small.
Yeah.
They're typically not mean. It would be a very good snake, because you wouldn't really, you might need a little bit of heat, but you really don't need much heat because it's a colubrid. So, the wintertime, you definitely need heat, especially with how cool you keep your house. But
yeah.
Summertime, you'd be fine.
I'm trying to talk to Joel, and we got to find that red line. Yeah, then maybe you can have one of her corn snakes. But,
Well, by then you might have one of my corn snakes.
oh,
The
yeah.
cool part about mine for you, Peggy, is there is no dollar value attached.
Oh, wow. I'll let Joel know that.
Just like I would completely bet that if I was like, "Hey Peggy, I need a turtle,"
Yeah,
I bet you there would be no dollar value attached, even if you could. Even
yeah,
if you could, I bet you'd just be like, "Yeah, no problem. Here, take one. I got enough of them."
true.
If I have baby corn snakes, I'm gonna have more than enough of them. If you want one, pick out one. They're
Well,
worth $75. If I give one to my friend, whoop-de-doo. It's not about the money.
yeah,
That is a very important topic I was hoping we could talk about tonight with somebody, but
yeah.
it seems like it's just going to be me and you to discuss this. And I don't think you're not really in the pet trade world side of this. Right? So this might be a difficult thing for you, but I feel like whoa, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my headphones went out. Okay, there we go. Um, I feel like the people in the reptile world and the reptile sphere are plagued by this. It can't be about the money
Mm,
because it's about the animals. And if it's about the money, then you're sacrificing the animals. And therefore, I feel like the people in the reptile world are completely devaluing themselves, their product, and everything else by doing that. However, if you do try to bring in, like, oh, hey, money is a thing, then you might become someone who doesn't care about their animals. You know what I mean? Because it's all about money to you. When it's not, but your time is worth something.
well, and
At,
see,
at the end of the day, right? Your time is worth something.
now,
And I'm not trying to be rude, but you should be valuing your time at something reasonable for you.
yeah, well, you're speaking to an artist who gets told all the time it shouldn't be about money. But, um, when you want to keep your house and pay your taxes and feed yourself, it has to be about money when that is the only job that you have. And so, yeah, granted, I'm going to be 66 in May. I'm on Social Security. I had to go on it early because, like I said, about those migraines and then just playing it safe during the pandemic. Um, uh, I have, I think about art in a commercial way. I always have, because I started being a business person at the age of 9, starting my own bait business. So I could afford my own bicycle, my own guitar, and start my college fund, that sort of thing. So I've always been about wanting to make money, enjoying what I enjoy doing, a job I enjoy doing. So with my artwork, when it comes to drawing my dog as a wolf, I know that people love, um, as far as wildlife goes, they love the dogs and the cats. It's something about us humans. We love dogs and cats. So when I draw wolves and cougars, I sell them a lot more quickly than when I draw deer and mountain goats. And so I'm going to, capitalize on that. And the same and at the same time, if someone says, "Will you paint my horse?" and I said, "Well, my oil paintings go for this, my drawings go for that." I don't make um, concessions in the price, because I have to. If I'm going to take the time to do another oil painting, I've got to get for that commission the same way as I would get for a wildlife painting I would sell in a gallery. And the same way with my bronzes. I cannot donate to um, auctions because it cost me $2,000 in foundry costs just to make it. Well, I need to make that money back.
Right.
I can't donate. So
It's
even
not
though,
like you're paying. It's not like you're paying $150 for the canvas,
right,
and $50 for paint, and you've got $200 maybe into the project.
right,
and then a whole bunch of time, because that is very time consuming,
Oh, it is.
painting something. And like a good example of this was like I have Justin Smith from Palmetto Coast Exotics, who I've had on the show, episode 3, moving on from Twyla into, or not, episode 4, sorry. So we'll skip Turtle Laws with Mike Aponovich real quick, and we'll hit on Justin Smith and Eric Burke, who are both in the Facebook group. And if you do have any questions about any reptile, snake-related things, especially carpets, reach out to Eric. Ganyasoma and other rat snakes, Justin would be the guy on that, probably. He also has chondros. He's got a whole bunch of stuff, so I shouldn't box him up like that. Anyway, he is the guy that I have designing our logo, and I will share this on stream real quick. I gotta share it to my phone real quick, but anyway, I will pull that up. We're working on a new logo. I'm unsure about it. Let's just take this time to figure it out, because we might as well.
I can be a harsh critic.
Yeah, no, and I'm not... Okay, let me try to get this right here in what I'm trying to say. I like the concept of our logo being that classic early radio days.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean, like that 1940s, 1950s radio, like back in the early days when Guiding Light was on the radio and not on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that concept of that super old school, which I find in the circle logo that we currently have. Like, I made the circle intentionally. Here, I can do this. The circle, I made it intentionally because I wanted that circle, and I would have put a mic in the background, but then it got too crowded.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I like that. CBS, ABC, Fox, all of them have a circle. It's that old school radio. You know what I mean? Like, a circle is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, I can't talk and operate my phone at the same time, so you need to do a little bit here.
This new puppy, he's a year old.
Well, you've seen the logo. Why don't you touch on the logo Justin Smith designed? And I'll work on pulling it up here.
My first, and this is my complete personal bias. I grew up in grade school in the 70s. World War II was less than 20 years from when I was in grade school. And so the 40s, I was watching a lot of black and white 40s movies on TV after school, and being a girl in the 60s and being told you can't, when I started my bait business, well, you can't have your own bank account. You got to get your dad's permission. And then my mom goes, don't feel bad. I have to have my husband's permission to have a bank account or a credit card. We women just need that. I'm like, no. I mean, at 9 years old, no. So, I mean, I grew to not like the current way things were for us women, let alone the past. And so I always wanted to look to the future, and that's why I was such a Trekkie, and all these women and different races on the bridge of the Enterprise. Yeah, the Enterprise was woke. And so, I mean, I was, being told I couldn't do things because I was a girl. Or my brothers were not being told the same thing. I mean, I hate the past. I really, really do. I mean, it wasn't until a whole decade later, during college, that I could go to a bank and open up my own darn bank account. And so,
right.
I mean, and so it was, and so when I see things in the past, I'm like, no. That is how deep ingrained I am. And
so it's more that, like, trying to connect your generation who isn't super tech savvy and who might not even know what a podcast is. Right. Like, let's get real. That's what it's about. It's about trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And so if you make it radio, which we made the name radio, that's the reason I chose radio, was because it's not a podcast. I want the older people, the old school people, to be like, oh, it's just radio show. Don't worry about it. You know, like, which is what it is. It's radio. We're on YouTube. We don't do well on YouTube. We do much better in our downloads within the first 3 hours on the podcasting app than we are doing on YouTube. So, yeah. Anyway, here's the logo Justin Smith made.
It's very well done.
It is. And I think the font fits better with that, trying to call in the old school radio, like I'm saying, you know, harken back to what's a podcast people type thinking. Right. So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
And I do like it. It's super clean. It will work well on the back of a t-shirt, which is great. Kelly pointed out the turtle. It doesn't quite look right, which I can agree on. The frog's better than the frog.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, I just bring out the front leg of the turtle a little bit more.
Or we can have him work on our logo. We can have him. He already has access to our logo. Okay. He can edit it, do whatever he wants to it. Okay. So it's really up to us. Okay. That was just what he threw together this morning to say, hey, this is what I can do, kind of deal. It was like, do you want access to our logo? He said, yep. Said, great. Okay. I gave him a number of which he needs to tell me if he hits, because that's where I'm going to panic.
Yeah.
And he said, don't worry about it. And I said, okay, I trust you. So.
Be something not of Star Trek. Well, yeah.
He'll listen.
I'm just a futuristic gal. And here I live in a log cabin, so what am I talking about? But yeah, a lot of wood, you know, in our house.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, that's just my painful past bias, you know, of growing up female in, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and then you know, my dad and I would watch a lot of the combat movie about the war, the World War II, the war, and you know, so I mean, I have a lot of biases from that period, and I admit it.
Well, that's fair enough. But if you can understand where I'm coming from, the connecting your generation to the podcast thing.
Yeah, us old fogies.
Yes, you're very progressive, and you know how to work a computer better than I would probably say most people your age. Let's get real.
And I was told that by my 40-some-year-old boss. Goes, wow, you know your way around computers. I go,
okay, there you go, Pegs. There you go. That's what I'm saying. So the people who are your age and can't work a computer, those are the people that I'm trying to make the logo for, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also trying to make it fresh and spunky and new and hip and blah, blah.
Yeah, well,
I'm not a designer or an artist. I know I can draw you boxes and lay you out a house and
I can't do graphic. I will admit, I cannot do graphic.
I cannot either, and that is why my money's going to somebody. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, you know, hyper-realism, which is what I do in sculpture drawing, is it goes on and often on in vogue art field. Right now it's in vogue. You know, but I just do, you know, what I enjoy doing, but with subject matters that people are more apt to buy. And, you know, and then, you know, I'll have plans, and I'm sure, you know, reptile breeders have this too. It's like they have plans to proceed with this particular species that they're fond of, but they're finding that the market is slanted towards people wanting this particular or, you know, morph or 2 or 3. And so they'll change their mind. And, you know, I have to do that too with art too. You know, like I'll have to drop my painting because somebody wants this sculpture commission. and the sculpture commission is a monument, which will put my stuff in my coffers for 3 years. So um, you know, I think reptile breeders, like artists, have to think money because they've got family and themselves to feed. I mean,
Right.
it's
Well,
like,
I think the reptile people just kind of devalue themselves a little bit, because if they try to charge, like, at least with you can be like, okay, well, this is just what I charge and that's just it. But like if like a snake breeder is like, no, my normal ball pythons are $100 and that's just what they are, because that's what it is. That guy's not going to sell any snakes. You know what I mean? Even if he's worked on the normal, and even if he's refined it and made it pretty, and you know what I mean, and made his own line of normal that looks different than any other normal,
mhm,
he won't sell it.
wow. Well, see, and this,
And I think we devalue. There once was a time where the term flesh peddler was common, and those are the things that we use to devalue our work.
mhm.
And I think the reptile community is more more prone to devaluing themselves and the work and everything, because if it becomes about money, then people don't think you care about the animal. Whereas like your stuff, if it's about the money, you still care about your art. It's just worth X amount.
Yeah,
But if I say my ball pythons, which I don't even breed ball pythons, if I said my ball pythons are worth $25-$30 more, then I gotta have a name to back that up or something. Which you
yeah.
have a name artistry wise, but do you know where I'm getting at?
Well,
Like somewhere like we devalue the podcast information. We devalue the information to where no one's willing to be like, hey, let's just.
well,
It's okay. It's okay for there to be money involved, and it's okay as long as it's for the right reasons.
mhm,
Like, hey, the money's involved because, well, this is what I'm trying to do for my life,
mhm.
and this is my business, and this is my blank. And I don't think we should hate on people because they're trying to make a profit or rag on them because of that.
Right. Well, this is the one thing in my networking with the really well-known breeders. When I had this clown show up, and I had only been, I had 4 turtles, and then this clown clutch showed up, and all of a sudden I was talking to breeders all around the world. The one thing I realized that their field of selling turtles really, really lacks is broad marketing and marketing skills. They have their set talents of marketing online and at reptile shows, and then they develop their wholesale market. But they're not touching on retail market, where sellers like my buyers, who are multimillionaires or just simply millionaires, and they want an outdoor sculpture piece. They just spent $30,000 on a pond. Well, a $10,000, $12,000 sculpture is nothing to them. And then to one of my breeder friends, I go, well, do you approach those people? Do you contact those pond businesses? Do you also let them know that along with this colorful toy, you've got these colorful turtles? Imagine a lemon yellow turtle out in that $30,000 pond. How much do you want to sell that turtle for? $5,000? Sure. And then this guy goes, what? I said, these are the type of people that I sell to. That it's like, it's especially when they want a commission. I said, well, a commission is something that um, you're directing me to design. You might, your design may not be as artistic as how I want to do it. I'm going to be trying to tell you that this will make your painting more sellable, even though it's of your animal, in the future, if you want to sell it, it's not just your animal; it's a work of art. So I'm always negotiating, with them and trying to lead them. If you want to consider this piece an investment, so I'm marketing, not only for my benefit but for them. The resale value of the art they're commissioning to do. And so, when it comes to breeding turtles, it's like, do you know what you have? I mean, I don't even think they know what they have sometimes. It's like, I'm talking, just on one list today. It's like, well, that turtle's only $1,000 turtle. I go, not to these people that are putting in a $50,000 pond.
Right. Well, I don't think the turtle market is quite as developed as the snake market is. Um, I really don't. After talking with Alan, and I've been following the snake world for 15 years now. I was on the forums back in the day. Like, I just don't think it's quite there. It's like, it reminds me of the early days. I've said it before on the podcast, and I'll say it again. It reminds me of the early days of ball pythons.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, that's a good question. Scott just asked, why is money a negative? And I don't think it is. I think that we have made it a negative in the reptile community, i.e., like a podcast trying to, or anyone, I don't know. If I feel like there's a big hate on trying to make the money from it. Like, because then it becomes not about the animals in a lot of people's heads. If that makes sense, Scott.
Yeah. And see, when I was 9 years old and started selling bait, of course I wanted to make sure that I'm selling animals that are going to be used as bait. But while I had them, I wanted to make them comfortable. The night crawlers, the frogs, the crawdads, the minnows. I had tubs and tubs of everything, and I made some good money. I think I was the only 9-year-old that had hundreds of dollars, in my piggy bank. So that's when I goes, you need a bank. You need to put this in a bank. And so, because our house was right on the way to Wall Lake in Sioux Falls, and so that was, to me it was take care of the animals well. But, you better do that. But it's about the money. And so I've always had that mindset, and yet as an animal lover, I never wanted to torture animals in horrible water and all that sort of thing. So it's both. I've always been a shades of gray person, never black or white. There's not by concentrating on one factor, you're not eliminating the other.
I think a little bit of the difference between the art and the animals is the living creature side of things, and when it does become all about money, then the creatures suffer. So it's all about that image of it's not all about money, even if someone is trying to make a living doing it. It is about the money to them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is, but they still care about the animal. And I think, yeah, that's kind of what I'm pointing on.
There's a difference in the persons that are, like, I like these animals. It would be great to make money with these animals. And then there's this other person like, I'm looking at ways to make money. Maybe I'll just try selling this animal. And they've never considered having that animal, having been a part of their life and enjoying that animal and creating habitats for the animal. There's a total different mindset, a total different type of person that gets into animal, those two types of persons that get into animals to sell them. Well, I'll say there's one person that gets into animals to sell them. Another person that's grown up with those animals and says, oh, I could sell these too and make some money doing what I love with the animals that I love. And that's where the difference is. And the same way with artwork. I can tell when I go up to the international wildlife art shows, very few of the ones of us who are juried in, usually there's 60 to 80 juried in from the world, you have to be juried into the shows. There was maybe a couple out of 80 that I could tell picked up wildlife art because they thought they could make money at it. Yet they didn't study the animal. They had bucks in in the summer in rut with polished antlers when they should, um, they wouldn't have polished antlers at that time. So they didn't bother to study their subject, um, and and they could execute the media really well, or they wouldn't have been able to be juried into the show. I mean, their paintings were fantastic, but they didn't know wildlife, and they were portraying the animal contrary to the animal's natural history. That, for those of us who knew what deer should look like in the summer, or that duck drakes did not help the hen raise the youngsters, only geese cared and helped raise the youngsters. Just things like that were glaring. And, so, you could tell they weren't making it in a different art field. So they thought wildlife art was an easier way to make money, but they didn't know wildlife art.
And that's I think that's where I'm kind of going with the money thing is if you try to make it all about the money right away, then you will be perceived as just trying to be after the money, which I think is, and money is okay, and like it's okay, but I still think the reptile hobby's more it swings on that money side. Like if you're perceived as in it for the money, then you're in it. Hop on, Scott. Just hop on and talk about this. I want to get you on the show for your own show as a whole show. I was hoping you'd hop on anyway, but if you can hop on, just hop on, man. It's an open show. Oh man, I am terrible with this mic setup though.
Oh, it sounds good.
So for the listeners, Scott says, I agree and disagree. There is a responsibility that is intrinsic to animal keeping, and the ultimate responsibility is to the ethical management of the animal itself, but how you achieve that financially. Right. I agree.
Yeah, and a lot of people who are into the responsibility part, they go, well, I would like to try raising and selling that animal, but first I do my research into it, and how do I keep that animal, and then run the numbers, like in knowing that this animal has to be kept this way, how much do I have to sell this animal for? How many animals do I have to sell to make it pay off financially? I mean, that's what business people do.
Right.
It's like manufacturing good. I have to keep the manufacturing of this good to this set price in order to sell it at this set price to make a profit. Well, you have to do that research, especially when you're dealing with live creatures, to understand if that husbandry is going to be done well and still allow you to make money, or do you just want to make enough money to cover your hobby and pay for all the lights and the food and all that stuff? That's absolutely fine too. You don't want to make it into a real commercial business. You just like to be making extra cash to not have your hobby cost you so much.
Right. And I think that's kind of in Scott's point in the comments. You need to fund it somehow, whether hobby partially or completely funding itself. That's where people get hung up.
Right.
And we talked about enclosures earlier, Scott, and we talked about the like rack versus enclosure, and like what's the difference between one snake in a tub versus a rack of snakes. And I think this is kind of in line with that.
Yeah, he's also just said, the other thing that needs to be remembered is that everyone has different minimum standards for ethical husbandry.
Right. And this is back into that rack conversation earlier. Man, I should have just invited Scott on and we should have recorded with him, because I have wanted to get him on for a while.
Okay, Scott, you're in the lineup now. So. but we only have about 15 minutes left of this show, and so we're saving you.
Yeah. Yeah, no. You
Saving
can't come in 15 minutes now. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love the points that he's making, and it is, yeah, it's
Yeah, it should be. There's one on Instagram. There's one on our new Facebook page, and there should be one on in the comments on YouTube. StreamYard.com /2x 2FTGRJRFB or JRF. Sorry, no B on the end of that.
oh,
Yeah, StreamYard.com / and I'll send the thing in the text.
yeah, because I think this really is a good discussion about money and people.
Yeah, no, and Peggy, I don't know if you have looked at any of Scott Eiper's stuff. Scott's in Australia. He, if I remember correctly, which I always say that, so if I mess up, right, Scott has cages set up in his snake room that mimic the sun. So, like, one part of the cage will light up in the morning, and then it'll follow in the daytime. Scott really cares about his enclosure setups. Like, he's got some really cool stuff.
I got to see that. I really.
Yes, Nature for You on YouTube.
Gotta write that down.
He's also, him and his wife have written plenty of books on Australian lapids, all a ton of stuff. I'm sure I'm not even doing you justice right now, Scott.
You do. Okay, excellent. Well, that I will look into. But that sounds really intriguing.
Yeah, he's going real hard on the automation stuff, which is super cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that. I used to do that when I only had one tank of turtles, and I had them on a timer and all this stuff. And I was a busy student taking on 2 science degrees at one time. So the most automated I could have, the better. So, and then now I just like turning on all my lights, saying hi to everybody, turning them off, and putting the greens in, that they like to munch through the night. So yeah, so now I'm more motherly, but doing the checking morning and night. But yeah, boy, it sounds like we need to have Scott on there.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
There is a ton to cover.
Yeah, like, does he have his outdoors and do all those dangerous creatures in Australia invade?
I don't know if he does outdoor keeping.
No. Yeah, that's one thing. I always see all these dangerous snakes and spiders and snakes in Australia.
Yeah, no, that's what you've said. You're so scared of Australia because you're afraid to.
Yeah.
You're afraid you'll die.
I've been bit by a black widow and was paralyzed for 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, and you're like allergic to everything too, so.
Yeah, well, and that was one thing. Like first, it bit me right here on the neck on my left side, and then my shoulder and arm were completely paralyzed. Then my leg, and then my left leg was only paralyzed for about 2 days, but the arm was paralyzed for a week, and then partially paralyzed for the other week. And I'm like, yeah, black widows.
Yeah, no, that would be. I don't know. I don't want to get bit by anything venomous. That's my goal in life.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I think it's possible.
Yeah. Well, and yet, boy, when we talked, when we were last talking with Ellen Bosch, I talked about that rattlesnake I pulled off that guy's pant leg. I just didn't even think of my own safety. I just thought, like, somebody's got to get the snake off him.
Right.
trying to tell if the snake was attached to the jeans, not the skin yet. So I wanted to grab that head before it attached to the guy's skin. Well, there.
Well, welcome, Scott Eiper from Australia,
G'day.
the second international guest we've had.
Wow. Welcome.
How we going?
Yeah, you sound, your points. And it's like, darn, we wish we could have gotten you on earlier in this episode. Really got in deep on that. So I adopted an Australian.
Sorry, what was that?
Go for it, Scott.
There you go.
What do you...
I suppose I'll keep it fairly brief, but I suppose there's a couple of things that need to be remembered in regards to costs. Costs aren't restricted to finance. Costs are restricted to time as well, right?
Yes.
And the successful husbandry of any animal is predicated on three things, right? The first thing is your experience level. The second is your financial, and thirdly is your time, right? So you can have all of the means in the world, all the financial backing in the world, and all the time in the world, but if you don't have the expertise, you're not going to be able to do that animal justice.
Yes.
Right? And you see that time and time again with people that have lots of money and they have, what's the phrase? All the gear and no idea. And so they can do anything that they like. They've got all the ability to do it, but then they don't necessarily do well with the animals because they don't know what they're doing. Likewise, you can have people that are really experienced that have got all the time in the world that don't have the money to be able to do what they want to do. So then they're not that successful. And what needs to be assessed as a keeper is that for any new animal that they look to bring in, or whenever there's a major change in your life, you need to go through and actually do a real reassessment about whether or not you should get more animals, or whether you need to downgrade, or whether you do have the ability to go into to have more animals. And that's where people shoot themselves in the foot, where they get too big too quick, and they go, well, I can maintain 100 snakes, or I can maintain 200 animals, or whatever. And then suddenly they breed a few things, and then suddenly they're dealing with 350 animals, and then they can't because they physically don't have enough hours in the day to do it. And so that's where they start to cut corners. Now, they either cut corners because the animals suffer, or they cut corners and the animals don't suffer immediately, but they take time and they go down over time. And that's where you see a lot of the large breeders that initially were quite decent. They seem to drop off in their quality after a while because they just don't have the time. They're not the ones that are looking after the animals anymore. They're employing someone else to look after them for them. And those people don't have the experience, or they don't have the funds to be able to maintain those animals in the collections that they want. So people need to really do a frank assessment about whether they want more animals or whether they want to keep the animals that they have better.
Right. I think my original lead into this was more of an assessment based on the time, like undervaluing your time as an individual, which all of us humans do just in general for work and everything, but I think the reptile community is a little bit more so, and it's because we want to teach. It's because we want that information to be free, but at the same time you're cutting yourself short in that aspect because your time is worth something at the end of the day, and even that goes into breeding and podcasting, everything in every aspect. I think the reptile community overall cuts themselves a little bit more short than most other communities, and maybe it's just because it's the animal thing. Maybe it's more the welfare of the and that reason, but
people do things for free.
You're right.
And because people do things for free, they assume that everyone should do it for free.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not saying that everyone needs to pay for every minute of everyone's time or yada yada yada. Like, no, it should be open. Like, open source is great, but at the same time, everyone's time is worth something at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't undervalue your time.
But if you're going to use an open source model, right, then you also need to remember that there's going to be anyone and everyone might be answering those questions, and that you may not actually be getting the right answers to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I've had people say, "Oh, well, why don't you just provide all of the information that you put together? Why don't you just make it freely available and just put it up on the web?" And I'm like, well, no. If somebody asks me individually for an answer to a particular question, I'll happily provide it. But I'm not going to put, thousands of hours worth of work online, which breaches copyright and all sorts of things. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I'm being a bastard about it. It's the reality of it is that it costs a hell of a lot of time and effort to put that stuff together. If you want a copy of it, buy a copy. It's not that
right,
hard.
and that's where it's worth something, right? That's where you have a point. Like with your books, that's a ton of information that took you probably years to compile overall, and years of experience that really, frankly, probably no one else really has. So yeah, no, you should.
I'm never going to have somebody turn around. I'm never going to have somebody turn around and contact me, right? I'm never going to turn them away. I've got a snake and it's sick or whatever.
Right.
I'm always going to help the person, right? Because at the end of the day, I love the animals, right? So I'm always going to help them. But at the same time, there's got to be a limit as well, right? And it's the same thing with an identification or a person who's been bitten by a snake or something like that, and I'm getting a phone call about that, or whatever the case may be, right? I'm always going to drop what I'm doing and try and help people out. But at the same time, there comes a limit, and I've only got so many hours of the day myself. And so, if I spend 20 minutes talking to Joe Blogs, that's 20 minutes that I don't have to spend with my wife, spend with my animals, spend with my kids, do my work, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And so,
it costs you something whether money's not involved. It costs you your time with your family or something.
Yeah. But at the same time too, right? I enjoy it as well, right? So is it a cost or is it something that you can learn from and benefit from? So
yeah, and then you're also building a reputation.
Right? Yeah. Well, they take decades to make and seconds to lose. So
right. And 1 minute of you being rude to someone is could be the end of it. Which, yeah.
You try not to be rude, but sometimes people catch you on bad days, and we're all human.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, well, and this goes along with the art thing. You know how many calls I get in a month to donate my artwork and letters to donate my artwork. And it's like, how many times are surgeons asked to donate a surgery, or you know what I mean? It's like, why is it the profession of being an artist? And I mean, and I've studied animal anatomy. I studied the working of the medium. I've got 2 degrees which go into my paintings in anatomy and animal behavior, and same with my sculpture. Why do I have to give up years of study that now are being expressed on canvas or in bronze? But a surgeon doesn't have to give up his years of study in free surgeries. Why is it always and then this one, I was asking this question of this woman who was calling for my artwork, and I said, I'll offer my artwork at your auction, and you can and there's a reserve price because I have to make that money out of it because that's my time in there, and you can take the gallery percentage. But I'm not just going to give my artwork away. You're not going to devalue my artwork. Like something that I sell in the gallery for $12,000, I will not release for $4,000. You're going to devalue my work. And
completely overall, right? Not just that one piece, but like everything you sell again now goes down in value because you compromised that one.
You're right.
Especially in that field.
Yeah, because then they'll wait. Like, well, we're not going to buy in the gallery. We're going to wait until it's up for auction. One of your pieces, when you join us in on this auction, I go, did you hear what you just said? And I said, when you sign a gallery contract, they said you cannot perform in these auctions because we will not allow you to devalue your work, which we are advertising, spending our money to advertise. And I go, this is what professional artists have to go through. We have contracts with galleries that we have to live up to. And so the same way with, in the reptile field, it's like, I will not give away my work. Why should any animal breeder give away their hours and hours of husbandry? Yeah.
So
But at the same time, you don't want to make it go for it.
In my image library, I've got 32,000 images, right? And I use those images for marketing, but I use those images in books and all the rest of it, right? Now, if someone says to me, hey, I need an image of species X or whatever, and it's for a conservation purpose, most of the time I'll just give it away, right? Because for me, it's particularly if I used it before, right? I don't really care. I've used it once before. But if it's something I haven't used or it's something that I've got value in and I need, then I'm not going to just give it away for nothing, right? And then I have people get upset about it. Now, at the same time, as an author too, right, sometimes we don't get an image budget, right? And so I'll talk to a photographer and say, hey, if you've got an image, I really like to use it. This is what I can do. I can give you a copy of the finished work at the end of it. It's going to this. Realistically, I'm not really seeing any money out of it. And writing reptile books, just so everybody knows, you make fuck all out of it, right? You make $0. It is a labour of love. You might get a couple of $1,000 or something like that as your book contract, but by the time you add the 4,500 hours worth of work that you put into it, you've just worked for 50 cents an hour or something like that, right? So you make no money out of it, right? But it's a way of giving back to the hobby that you've learned so much from. So it's something you enjoy to do, and that's
at least you're getting back a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, nothing substantial, really.
But not really. Kids in India making sneakers make more money than I do. But the reality of it is, right, is that I'm the one that no one held a gun to my head and said, hey, you need to sign this contract, you need to do this. I chose to do it, right. And that's fine. Right? And it's the same thing with frankly art or anything else, right? At the end of the day, if you've chosen to do it, hey, some people can make a lot of money out of it, and that's great. But then there's other people out there that do it for the love of it, and they want to devalue themselves and sell something at a very reduced rate, and that's okay too. Everyone's got their own line in the sand that they're happy to draw from and what they want to do, and that's fine. But to have people say that, to get upset when you turn around and say that you're not going to give them something for free that you spent thousands of dollars generating yourself, whether it be through gaining experience, gaining experience, gaining the notoriety, gaining the stuff that you needed to gain to in fact actually produce that piece of art or produce that work. It takes time and it costs money, and it's not unreasonable to ask for a small amount for that.
Right.
So, and if people have a problem with it, that's fine too. You just don't get it. That's fine. I don't really care. I don't have to give you don't have to give it to you.
Well,
that's the beauty of things.
And in my field, one of the calls I got, they wanted a sculpture for this auction, and I said, well, I can't afford to do that, but I can afford to do a painting, and then have you take a gallery percentage. And they said, well, you can't participate unless you give us a sculpture, and if you don't, we're going to spread it around, town that you're uncharitable. I go, so you did not hear that I was willing to do this for you. And it's like,
I feel artists are that whole art field is very interesting because it's, I don't know, I'm not an artist. I am hiring Justin Smith to do my graphic. Yeah. Because I think our logo is crap. So
I don't do graphic.
Yeah.
I would not be good at graphic. I'm
well.
Yeah. Hire somebody to do it.
Right.
Because it's just not my field. So
it costs a lot of money to do things, and people expect things should be free all the time, and that's the sad part.
That's kind of the point I was getting at right there, Scott, is, and then just don't give away yourself completely for free. Like, just mind that, like, your time is worth something overall, and what your efforts are worth something. And I'm not saying, like, oh, yeah, Mr. Podcast Guy who's got 15 followers should be asking for $1 million from somebody. I'm saying, I'm just saying that your time is worth something at the end of the day, and don't undervalue what you're putting out.
Yeah.
What I love, right, is that when people say, "Oh, well, if you do this, you'll get more exposure," or something like that. Mate, you're coming to me. I don't need the exposure to me. Right?
No, you're pretty well known, Scott.
I'm good with the exposure. I'm fine. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Right? And then apparently when you say that, you're an egotistical because you turned around and said that. And it's like, well, hang on a second, dude. You've come to me. I didn't come to you. You came to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, it's true that you can hop on a podcast of one who hasn't ever reached out to you, because I haven't. That's a fact.
No.
And the second you typed in, I mentioned you by name. Like, you're clearly known, okay? You're known. Like, you don't need it.
Yeah.
You don't need it. You're known, Scott. You're known. You've written so many books. You've done so much for the hobby, especially in Australia, and, like, that's where you live. You know more than any of us over here, but...
I'm just another snake shit cleaner at the end of the day, right? I'm nothing special. That's the reality of it.
But you're still known. You've already got the notoriety. You don't need... And that's not egotistical. That's a fact.
Yeah, well...
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And I have to say...
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
About people that, like artists who don't have a name or artists who do have a name. I stick up for both genres where I take, for instance, one of my good friends raising a man, raising a family. He needs to make money, even though he just started in selling his artwork on the circuits, the wildlife, the international wildlife art markets, and his and people like, well, you haven't paid your dues enough, and I'm outspoken. I turn to this person who was bothering this young man in his booth. I go, excuse me, he's paying his dues right now. It cost him a bunch of money to get here. It cost him a bunch of years and talent that he had to develop to be juried in. He's got a family to support. He's already paying his dues, and he has to pay, to feed his family. So be fair with him. This guy, who was a millionaire. I knew the buyer, and he just looked at me just like, okay, and he bought the painting at the asking price, and so I mean, then the girls on the other side of my booth just go like, hey, can you do the same for us if some jerk starts trying to dick us down? And I was like, sure, fine. I got to tell this story really quick. This one guy came to my booth, and he just goes, well, you've got this African elephant here. Have you ever been to Africa? I go, no, but I work with the zoo that we just put together this African elephant exhibition or exhibit. And the guy goes, well, I won't buy anybody African art from anybody who hasn't been from Africa. And I go, go 2 aisles over. There's a guy painting dinosaurs. And the guy just kind of looked at him. I go, point taken. So yeah, I mean, you hear all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure you guys who sell reptiles at reptile shows, I mean, you must hear it all when people have this one of your animals and they want to really try to get the best price.
Do you breed for the pet market, Scott, or are you just like I have no idea? Okay,
I know you. Anymore. I work with mainly dangerously venomous snakes these days, so okay. Yeah, not really pets. And then the other stuff we tend to give a lot away. I'd rather give it away. I'd rather give something away to somebody who is going to appreciate it, who I like, than deal with dickheads. So yeah. So now it's the same thing. We we don't need to make the money out of it. I'm happy to keep putting money into the hobby because it's something that I enjoy. So I'm happy to spend money and not worry about it. I mean, we spent 40K on a snake building. So our building itself cost 40K that we keep the animals in. That's not including the cages, not including the animals, all the rest of it, right? So, you know, when you're spending that sort of money into something, you go, oh, well, if I'm doing that as a business, I've got to try and get that 40K back, plus interest, plus time, plus effort. No, this is, and then, you know, God forbid you say the word profit.
Right. Then you're the bad guy. That's
So there's, and this is where I have an issue where people sort of bag money. Money's not a problem, right? It's where people keep and they lower their ethical standards of husbandry to make a profit. That's where it becomes a problem.
Yes.
Right,
you can make money as long as you still maintain your ethical minimum, right? And that what everyone's ethical minimum though is different, and that's the issue.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not robots. Unfortunately, we like to try and be, and our legislation tries to force us to become robots. But the reality of it is we're not, and that's why there's artists, and that's why there's authors, and that's why there's other people out there, and we're all different, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be different.
That's what we should be, because if we were all the same, then we'd really have something to worry about, I think.
100%. Mate, I'm going to have to lash. I've got a million things on and no time to do it, but I just wanted to jump on and just say good day and keep up the great work with the podcast.
Thank you. Plug your stuff. We're going to plug ours. It's bedtime over here, so.
Yeah.
Search my name, you can find me that way.
Right on. If you don't know who Scott Eiper is, you should by now. I think I made that a point. Anyway, Scott, you have a good night.
Just another bloke.
Or a good day. Yeah. Take it easy, man.
Bye. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Fun.
Scott is really super cool. I'm super glad he popped on. I was really hopeful for that tonight.
There's so many questions I wanted to ask, but I knew
he's getting his own show eventually.
I mean, it's like he has to be working with zoos and everything over there, and it's like
he's doing some stuff, that's for sure. Anyway, I'm ready to wrap this show up and go to bed. So, as for you, Peggy, where can someone reach out to you at if they have turtle questions? Because do not come to me with turtle questions. I am not the person for that.
The best place to find me for turtle questions is on Facebook with Black Hills Turtle Forum, and my picture that I use is of my clown, a portrait, a photo of my Western painted turtle clown. And that's where they can find me, ask me questions galore off there. They can also find out about my turtle life and my artistic life on Instagram at Detmers Studios, DETMERS STUDIOS.
Awesome.
So yeah, and about you.
As for the podcast, because I don't really care about me, I'm not doing anything important. You take pictures, that's kind of important. Me, I have baby snakes, and I'm sharing them on Herp Talk Radio at Herp Talk Radio on Instagram. There is a brand new group, a new Facebook group, Herp Talk Radio, all one word on Facebook. Please join the group. That's where you could have found the link to tonight's chat. And we're going to keep doing this live thing as long as our guests let us. Our recording night moved to Wednesday instead of Monday, which means instead of 10 days I have 7, or it's live. We have one in the book for if our guest doesn't want to go live, but from here on out, we are a live show because I have already recorded the second show of Herp Talk Radio. So that's going to be an interesting episode. I was dog tired when I recorded with Nipper Reed, who talked to me about Milos Island and herping in Bulgaria, which are some very interesting locations for completely separate reasons. But that show will be coming out I would say within the next month. Don't get too keen and happy on it, but it will be there. The idea and the concept for this show is a super highly edited show that sounds super polished and is just very fluid. One-on-one type show, you know. It's going to be once a month. I might get 2 episodes in before I release. Haven't decided exactly where I'm going. It doesn't even have a title yet. So, yeah. Other than that, Facebook group again. Join the Facebook group. Let's create a community for new keepers who are checking out the podcast, which I feel like we should be getting because we talk about new keeping things quite often. Can connect with the people we have on. Justin Smith is a part of that group. Eric Burke, who's been on the show, is a part of that group. There's a couple other people like Phil Wolf. We just had him on. He's a part of the group. If you have any venomous questions, ask him in the group. Phil will answer them. I would love to know what your venomous questions are. That's what the group is for. It's to build the community. I didn't make a page, I made a group. So join the group. That's where we're at on Facebook, is group.
Excellent.
Awesome. So yeah, me, herptalkradio@gmail.com, herptalkradio on Instagram, the Facebook group. That's all we're at.
Excellent.
YouTube, live on YouTube. Go check back on next Wednesday. We might be live next Wednesday on YouTube. You never know if we're going to go live or not. There will be an episode next Wednesday evening right here at Herp Talk Radio.
At Herp Talk Radio.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.